Every dollar that you spend is a message to the universe. You have to be absolutely mindful about what you do with what you have. Now, I know when it comes to money, manifestation, and spirituality, we tend to only focus on what we don't have. We tend to focus on what we desire, what we wish to attract, right? What we wish to bring into our lives. But what you wish to attract starts with what you do with what you have. Now, the ultimate thing that I've learned when it comes to money that really has made a profound shift in how I attract and bring money into my life is that money is a medium, right? It is a tool. And that's something you probably heard before. But what I want you to recognize is that it's a tool that bridges one reality to another. Now, what we're talking about here is it being a tool that bridges the spiritual into the physical, right? It is a bridge that bridges it is a tool that bridges the subjective to the objective. Okay. Now, if you get nothing else from anything that I've shared with you, please pay attention to this, because when you understand the power of your money, what you have and how you use it, then you start to essentially, pun intended, bridge the gap between what you currently have now, right? And what you desire. Okay. Especially when it comes to money. But this relates to other things as well, because money is a means, right, by which you can create more money with it, or you can create something else with it. Okay. It is a tool. You get to decide what that tool is directed toward. So it is centered around intention. Okay. What is your intention? Now, be mindful that the importance of intention is understanding that your attention essentially is how you are directing your consciousness. Your consciousness is the divine spark that is within you. It is connected from, derivative from, a product of source, that which some of us even call God, the universe. And so when your consciousness has an objective that it wishes to achieve or experience, it is then setting out an intention to actually experience it. And so that's where we begin the journey of movement toward that thing. And so when it comes to money, what I want you to understand is that with money, right, the reason why money is so important, is so significant, is that it is something that bridges and brings together these two essentially opposing realities, right, that function in the same realm. So you're talking about the subjective, the objective. Within the subjective is an objective opinion or belief system. Within the objective, there is subjectivity as well, right? Now, the beauty of money is that it is a tool that you can use, should be using, right? Is designed to be used for the very reason of you having a desire, a dream, an aspiration, right? Based on who you are, because everybody's dreams and aspirations, everybody's idea of success is completely different from one another. If I say I'm going to be successful, you're probably going to ask, doing what, right? Because you need to gain clarity. And then I'm going to get into what that looks like for me. And then there is some kind of connection as far as recognizing, okay, how that relates to you and your idea of success. So with money, some people say, I want to be rich, right? Okay, what does that mean to you? We've got it down to an understanding of I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire, right? That's more clear because then there is numbers that we can actually identify and see in our minds and understand. But the thing about money is it's about coming into a universal understanding of value, a universal understanding of something that we can understand and agree with is a tangible identity of, you know, something that's valuable. So we say value, okay? Because I can't think of another word besides that. I mean, it is what it is, it's value. But in reality, value, right? In one side of reality, value is completely subjective, right? I can say to me, getting a massage, you may say it's valuable to you. I may say it's not really valuable to me because I'm not really holding that much stress, right? I stretch a lot. Yes, I am, athletic and I work out a lot, but I don't find that it is something that is valuable to me in relationship to what you find valuable, right? Um, a car, let's say some kind of fancy car, a Benz, with the G-Wagon is a big deal now. I couldn't care less, as you probably can tell, right? So some people will say that it is valuable to them to have that car. But I say just a basic, Jeep Renegade is valuable to me. As long as it gets me to where I need to go and want to be, and it's reliable, it's comfortable, AC, some heat, I'm good, right? So those are all subjective. But what we have to come to is money is the source by which we can add a tangible value, right, to what it really signifies to have those things. Now, I don't want to go off too much, but essentially, money is that bridge of understanding from your subjective point of view of value to the objective point of view of value for the society, for the culture, right? For the civilization, for other people, for the community. Now, you have to understand that when it comes to this, please take a screenshot so that way you can really understand the importance and the significance of this. Also understand that you, right, and the spiritual is first before the physical. So this right here is important when it comes to attracting money, creating money, materializing and manifesting anything. It starts with you first. It starts with you and your frequency, and then it goes into and actually materializes into the physical. So the money that you currently have, okay, remember, we're talking about bridging a gap. The money that you currently have is a tool. You must understand that the money that you're using, right? See that everything that you are purchasing as essentially an energetic agreement. Now, we know money can come in multitude of different forms, right? Cash, digital, even crypto. But really, what money is energy, okay? You can even go as far as to say it is a frequency, okay? So with the energy of money, you have to ask yourself, well, what are you putting that energy toward? Energy is simply just like emotions, needs to be directed towards a certain thing, right? That's what emotions are. Emotions is energy in motion. So when you have money, you should be asking yourself, what are you putting that toward? Like, what is the purpose? a lot of times people who have money, okay, and are considered quote unquote irresponsible with money, it is because they have it and they spend it with no sense of purpose. Okay. They have no idea or have no clear intention as to what it is that they want to do. They're not focused, right? They're not disciplined. In order to be disciplined, you have to be focused. In order to be focused, you have to have a clear intention, goal, aspiration. So for you in your money, let's say if you want to make more money, then you need to be mindful about what is the purpose by which you're going to take the current money that you have and put it towards something. So that can look like obvious things, investing, right? We can break that into, you know, real estate. We can get into creating some kind of a business, right? So those are different things that we can get into as far as taking the money in order to make more money. More money. We put it in these vehicles. Now, say if your purpose is or your desire, right? And this is the thing, you got to be clear about your desire. You can't just have a desire or have a want and not think that there needs to be some action. There needs to be some focus. There needs to be some kind of, you know, thing that you do in order to actually get it done, right? You have to just think that and understand that just simply having the want or just simply having the desire is enough. That's not true. You have to direct that. You have to put in some kind of action in order to get that. So if your purpose is, right, whatever you want, let's say this time it is proper health. You want to get in shape. You want to get 6-pack abs. You want to get that nice butt. Then you have to put it toward things like, okay, what's your diet like? Like, how are you eating? Right? Activity. We need a trainer. Okay. You need to go to the gym. So if the purpose is putting it toward fitness, let's say fitness, right? Because fitness and health can be two different things, but fitness does add to your health. So essentially, you want to be intentional about that money, right? You want to put it towards that. So what does that mean? That can mean being intentional about maybe not putting so much money toward your food, right? Essentially eating less. That can also mean putting more money into maybe better quality food, right? So you could go one way or another with diet, especially activity. Activity doesn't always have to be something that you put money into. You don't always have to get a trainer. But you may say, you know what, I'm going to take up running. I'm going to look up some YouTube videos. I'm going to train myself. And you need some things. You need some good shoes. You need some light equipment, right? So that is essentially what you focus on. That's what you put that money toward in order for you to get this result. Understand that, you spend your money, the things you spend your money on should be intentional. That's the point of it. It shouldn't be a means by which you use it to distract yourself from what it is that you desire. And that's often what we're doing. We're taking our money, hard-earned money. And for some of us, many of us, most of us, it's not a lot of money, right? So that means you don't have much money to waste. That means you have to be even more intentional, more focused, more disciplined. You have to be stronger than those who have more money because you don't have a lot to waste. Okay. You don't have a lot of room to play with. So whatever you do have, you have to be serious and focused on it and say, hey, since this money is only limited, okay, to a certain amount, I have to be very, very diligent and creative with it, So you have to be creative with what you have, okay? And then apply discipline and focus. That always must be directed toward your desire. You can't let it get pulled away, right? You can't let your money get pulled in a trap of, you know, distractions, right? Like that that Netflix subscription. Can't spell Netflix real quick. Or, any of those other subscription services you have. It's just like, what is going on? You know what I'm talking about when you're down to your last and randomly, right? The subscription payment comes and you're like, damn, that's because you're not paying attention. You're not being focused. You're allowing your money to go toward the very things that are pulling you away from your desire. So be focused on the desire. Okay. It's going to take work. It's going to take time, perhaps, right? That's all depending on you. But ultimately, it is what you do with this that will determine, right, how you reach this desire. This is all a matter of clarity. This is all a matter of making sure things are properly aligned. Now, there's some things that you cannot account for, right? Sometimes there are surprises in life. But no matter what, though, if you stay focused, if you stay disciplined, if you stay committed to your desire, and you always direct what you have toward that desire instead of these distractions, okay, you eliminate all the distractions, eliminate the need to want to go out on a bunch of dates, if you're single, even if you're in a relationship. That relationship still should back the desire that you and your partner have. So you should say to your partner, listen, this is something that I need to achieve. This is my purpose to do so. To at least take the walk in this direction, right? Proactively. And so the money that we have that we can use, right, toward this goal, we must. And everything else that is taking away or distracting us from our goal, we have to get rid of it. You have to be intentional with your life. You have to recognize that this is a conscious exchange, right? That essentially it sustains the abundant field. Now, when we talk about the abundant field, right? Here's you. Let's say here's the universe. There's a constant back and forth happening. Okay. Now, the truth of the matter is you and the universe are one. And this is an example of that. So if your idea or your focus right now is making more money, then you need to put that out, right? And you will put that out because that's constantly on your mind. Remember, you're the nucleus of all the things that's happening in the universe. You are the source, right? You're the beginning and the end. So when on your mind is money, you're learning all the things, you're implementing all the things, and everything that you learn and implement goes out into the universe. The universe then takes that, like throwing a rock or, a stone in a lake. It will ripple out into the universe, hit the edge of the universe, right? Or the edge of the lake, and it will come back to you. Okay. Now that is constantly happening every moment, all the time. You have to be intentional about this exchange. So how you spend your money, right? If your money is a tool, how you spend your money or put your money out is going to come back to you. So if you're putting your money out there towards the distractions like Netflix or whatever, right? Going to the movies, a bunch of dates, then that's going to direct back towards you in a form of basically, you know, I'm reluctant to say wasted time because there's nothing wasted as far as time, but you will essentially get that back. Basically, you're overweight because all you're doing is eating out, right? Which means you're more tired, more lethargic. You don't have enough energy. You don't have enough focus. You're putting in a idea, a pattern, a belief system that you need to always go out, right? So that's becoming more of a habit for you. Whereas, say if you are putting it toward saving money, right? Or directing it toward maybe building an idea for a business, building a business, then that is going to go out to the universe and the universe is going to reciprocate that in kind. So you have to be mindful about this exchange that's happening here. So the abundant field is really defined that based on you and your actions. If you are coming from a place of abundance, right, meaning that you are investing in you, then that will create more of that for you. You see? So you have to honor the vibration of building. You cannot take for granted. You cannot sit and just not do, focus. Everything requires a level of exchange or a sacrifice. Sacrifice is a good word to be used when it comes to, say, this abundant field, right? This constant back and forth between you and the universe. If you are deciding that you're going to just sit on the couch and watch TV, there is a sacrifice you're taking, right? If you decide that you're going to get up and actually do work, get on your laptop, get on your phone, post content, write a blog, write a book, then you are still sacrificing something. The question is the sacrifice you're making worth what it is that you're going to get in return? Because the reality is you are always going to get something in return for what you do or don't do. This is the key. So this is why when we think about money, it is more clear to us. That's the beauty of money, is that it is something that, let's say, your mind, right? Your imagination is here. You have an imagination, right? You have something that you're thinking about. All right. We talked about this when we said more subjective. All right. This is your subjective reality. This is what I talk about all the time. When I say you create your reality, you are the creator of your universe. It is a subjective reality that is basically surrounding you, that is there because of you. And then you have this, objective kind of framework where everybody in their realities exist in. Okay. And so we have to figure out a means of communicating. Okay. And then money functions as that. Okay. It gives us a medium by which we can say, okay, I want this in my reality. You find somebody who has that and you say, in exchange, here's money for it. Okay. So it's really about you recognizing that money is a tool. That's all it is. It is a tool to get what you want. But you have to recognize that in order for you to get what you want, there are certain things that you have to do, right, to get the money. That's the simple end of it. Now, money, though, is not something that is by far something that's hard to reach, hard to achieve, hard to attract. It's just simply the frequency that you're emitting about this abundant field that I mentioned before. If you recognize and identify yourself as somebody who is abundant, and you are dialed in, you are one with the universe, which is always abundant and infinite, then the money will be attracted to you. Okay. By way of ideas, by way of value that you put out, by way of things that you share. Okay. Because again, it is an exchange. It is always about an exchange. So you have to understand that this whole process is about recognizing that money is an objective tool, a symbol, a product of the subjective mind or the subjective reality. And once you recognize that connection, then you start to, again, bridge the gap between what's going on in here and what's going on in, say, your bank account. Okay? Because your mind, your spirit, your consciousness is the source between what is happening, right, in your heart and what you desire and your purpose and what's in your bank account, or what you see when you stand on the scale, or what you experience when you look in the mirror, or when you put on clothes, or who you lay with when you go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, you see, or where you lay as far as your home or the vehicle you drive. It all starts with you. So when you recognize that it starts with you, then you understand that the work has to happen, right, with you, toward you, right? And then that manifests itself outward, okay? That projects or sends out a frequency or a, pulse out into the universe, and then the universe reflects that back, you see? So that's how I want you to think about money. This is how I want you to think about every single dollar that you spend, is that it is you sending a message to the universe, right? And then whatever you do with that message, the universe will absolutely and always give it to you. So be clear about what you do with every single dollar, digit, just be clear about it. If you want to lose weight, be clear about what you buy with that money. If you want to go to the gym, be clear which gym you go to. If you want to get fit, right? Which trainer you pick. Be clear about, your dates, right? Who you go on a date with, where you're going on a date. Be clear about the books that you buy. If you want to make more money, instead of buying a novel, you may want to buy a, book on making money, investing. You see? So it seems obvious, but it's something that we often miss because we get distracted. We procrastinate. We put it off till later, when now is a time that only matters. Even when it comes to connecting and aligning with your future self, that happens now in this very moment. So when I talk about the future self frequency in my book, I want you to understand that, yes, we're talking about this idea of us, the version of you who has it all, the version of you that is complete, happy, living in joy, and absolutely connected with abundance and prosperity, but is focused on pulling that version of you that exists in the present moment and being that version now, versus imagining or thinking that version is a fantasy and and doesn't really exist. It does exist. That version of you is there. You are that version. You just simply have to learn how to align with that version. And this is one of the things I talk about in the Future Self Frequency to help you get there. So please go to futureselffrequency.com. If you want, you can put your email address in, and I will give you a series of gifts throughout the course of 7 days, which will help you, guide you, support you in expanding your understanding about how to connect with this future version of you in order to actually attract and create the money that you want. Get the perfect health, find the perfect partner, be the perfect partner, and ultimately be the version of you that you know you're meant to be. So I look forward to seeing you when you actually do that. And for the next video, we'll talk more about how to align, how to actually match the frequency of the version of you who has it all. Thank you so much. Peace and abundance always.